starting in 2:1 with the first sign and extending through 20:29, all the non-miraculous narrative and discourse material serves the purpose of either preparing for or illuminating the meaning of the 8 signs around which the book is structured. I want to repeat that. All the non-miraculous narrative and discourse material serves the purpose of either preparing for or illuminating the meaning of the 8 signs around which the book is structured. That is emphatically true of the material we have looked at in my talks yesterday and today. From the earliest part of the upper room, or the last discourse, Jesus is talking about not only his death, but his resurrection and ascension, preparing for this climactic miracle. The superlative self-assurance that Jesus manifests in chapters 13 to 19, his selfless love for his own, his courage while on trial, his compassion on the cross, and everything else is preparatory. These chapters prepare the reader for the astounding fact that Jesus raised himself from the dead. Though many might doubt this fact, as Thomas did, Thomas is at last convinced. His confession, "My Lord and my God," 20:28, is followed by the last words of the main body of this book. Jesus says in 20:29, "Thomas, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." To his unconverted readers in Ephesus, therefore, John is saying this: you didn't see any of this, but I did. You are blessed if you believe. And what is that blessing? John 20:30-31 expresses it. The blessing is eternal life. Thank you.
The question is, would you comment on the use of logos in John 1:1 in light of the readers to whom John wrote? And they go on, was John intentionally referencing a philosophical thought in order to gain a better hearing from his readers?
That is a very perceptive question indeed. And John, it seems to me, in chapter 1, is doing exactly what we as evangelists often do. We find a point of contact with the people we're trying to evangelize, do we not? And if we're talking to a literate audience in Ephesus, then of course it is well known that the word logos is a key word in Platonic philosophy. It is also a key word in Stoic philosophy. And it's very striking that the word logos is used in an absolute sense of Jesus only in John 1:1-14, and nowhere else in the New Testament, nowhere else even in the Gospel. So this is an effort by John to make contact with his unconverted readers and to say to them, the logos that you've all heard about in these philosophical discussions, the true logos is the person I'm talking to you about.
The next question, I can't coordinate all these things here at the same time. The next question is in Acts 4, 5, and 6, and 13, and I'm not turning to the exact passage, so let me see if I've got it. It says, they say that, let's see, where am I here? They say, Caiaphas, John, and that they were calling the disciples uneducated men and untrained men. how does that relate to John?
In one of two ways. Of course, Peter was the major spokesman. We're not postulating any kind of extensive education for him. And it might be that the... He did not have a PhD from Dallas, right? And it might be that if Peter carried the thrust of the presentation before the Sanhedrin, that they just simply took it for granted that his level of education was also the level of the other guy standing there. They might have been wrong there. On the other hand, the term grammatoi might refer to formal religious training rather than to general education. And in that case, neither of them had formal religious training, even though John, as we've suggested, may have had a very fine classical education.
Okay, this next one says, when talking to unbelievers, what word should we use to talk about having eternal life? And they suggest saved, justified, born again.
What's wrong with telling them they can have eternal life? Since the Gospel of John, of course, does use the word saved a few times of that, but actually the Gospel of John majors in eternal life. I'm surprised that we don't major in it. Why shouldn't we major in what the Apostle John majored in? People can and if people say, what do you mean by eternal life? That's a golden opportunity to explain to them, right? I say go with eternal life.
I was just reading the question. I didn't.
Shame on him for reading a question like that.
Okay. How does John 21 relate to John's purpose, since it follows the purpose statement, etc.?
Well, obviously, it is not part of the total package of 8 signs that John is using to bring him into faith. But it's an epilogue, and it suggests, I think, to the unconverted reader that the risen Jesus is still active in the lives and experiences of his followers. That's a neat epilogue to an evangelistic document, it seems to me.